I had my first Nepali cornbread with breakfast at the Moonlight Guest House in Shikha. It was not what I expected, but it was really good, so I sought it out after that. We left the guest house around 8. We didn't have far to go to get to Ghorepani, just 6 miles, and we descend 3,000 feet. I met a friendly old dog on the way out of town.
Hello, puppy. Hello, puppy.
I guess this is what a buckwheat field looks like after it is harvested. We climbed towards Ghorepani, and I saw it spelled a lot of different ways. I'm not even sure how it's pronounced, Ghorepani or Gotapani. Either way, it means horse water because water has to be packed into the village. The highlight of the day was seeing all the water buffalo. About a half hour into the hike, we looked back to see the massive footbridge from the day before. Emboldened by my encounter with the friendly dog in the morning, I tried to make friends with this guy. Hanging out with him made Raj nervous, so I had to give up. I rolled into Ghorepani around 11:15. I was settling in at Hotel Fishtail before 11:30. Some of my clothes and gear were damp, so I tried to dry them off on the roof. From that vantage point, I watched some men play a dice game. I also spied on a dog that looked a lot like my friend's dog, Teddy. From there, I watched Jose and Luis stroll into town. Dinner was served with apple pie, which is a local specialty. We had to get to bed early because getting up at 4 a.m. would be tough. We had to get up early because we were supposed to climb to the top of Poon Hill before breakfast. This is what the dining hall looked like at 5 a.m. 45 minutes later, we were at the Poon Hill ticket station. Luis and I gave our money to Raj, and he got our tickets. Jose didn't feel up to the early morning hike. The trail was crowded. The crowd was probably a blessing. It forced us to slow down. Despite the cold and the slow pace, the steep climb meant I was sweating. Too much sweat would have made the weight on top unbearably cold. There was a tea house on top, so I got some. As the sky started to lighten up, we realized we weren't going to get the iconic Poon Hill view. From Poon Hill, you're supposed to be able to see the entire Annapurna range. Because of the bus ride across the desert, we hadn't seen Annapurna 1. We were also supposed to be able to see Dhaulagiri and the hotel's namesake, Fishtail. The mountains were socked with clouds. The clouds blocked the top, so no Annapurna 1. It was still beautiful, and I think I could see Fishtail nestled between the higher peaks. On the hike down, I asked Raj and Luis to go on without me so I could try and fail to find a geocache near the top and just off trail. It was odd looking for a cache with so many people walking downhill so close by. When we got back to Hotel Fishtail, Jose was waiting for us. He showed us his pictures of the mountains at sunrise. He thought his pictures were just as good as ours. I gotta admit, I'm not sure he was wrong. We had a quick breakfast and started our downhill trek to Green View Guest House. It was just 3 miles short of Nayapul and the end of our trek. Got a late lunch at the guest house that was surrounded by buckwheat fields. I spent the rest of the afternoon doing errands in the little village. It was difficult to find envelopes for our guide and porter tips. I also wanted to get rum for Opil, Raj and I, and a Gorka Strong for Justin. That night would be our end of trek celebration. After dinner, the owners of the guest house put celebration music on a loop, which consisted of just 2 songs, and one of them was Happy Birthday. The owners also had a TV on in the dining hall. The show seemed to be about a Nepali festival. That showed a lot of dances and, of course, the accompanying music. The TV was at least as loud as the celebration music. It turned into quite the cacophony. We, Jose, Luis, and I, made a faux pas. We were told during the trek briefing we were supposed to tip 10% of the trek cost. We weren't told how that 10% was supposed to be broken down between the guide and porters. In the hotel, I found a random posting that stated 3/5 or 60% of the 10% was supposed to go to the guide, and the remaining 2/5 were to be split among the porters. So we did that. After dinner, the tip envelopes were handed over and a social chill fell over the celebration. Soon thereafter, Justin and Opil excused themselves and continued to celebrate on their own in the guest house kitchen. Raj told me the porters were pissed. We had way under-tipped them. I got the breakdowns backwards. I got the remaining envelope that was intended for Raj from my room and handed it to him. I told him I had gotten the numbers backwards. I asked Raj to take whatever was appropriate from his envelope and hand it over to Justin and Opil. We wouldn't really see Justin and Opil again. Much earlier than us, they were awake and heading towards Nayapul. They'd carry our bags down, but would immediately turn around with another trek going back up to the Annapurna Basecamp. We got an unnecessarily early start. We had just 3 miles to Nayapul. After the initial drop, the land was pretty flat. We were surrounded by farmland. Raj pointed out a little ramp going up to a suspension bridge platform. It was meant for motorcycles. Can you imagine riding a motorcycle across a footbridge? Yikes. Just before the end, we ran into Opil and Justin heading up. They seemed to be in high spirits. We shook hands and said goodbye and thank you again. Hopefully our transgressions were forgiven. At Brianthi, just outside of Nayapul, we officially exited the Annapurna Conservation Area after being in there for 14 days. We took an obligatory photo at the exit before a shockingly early lunch. It wasn't even 10 a.m. yet. If you recall, I was tricked into paying for a sad apple on our way out of Mukdana. I fished the apple out of my backpack and had that with some tea. Raj made arrangements for our ride to Pokhara. I think it was the same van that drove the Annapurna Basecamp Trek members to Nayapul. We said goodbye to Raj at our hotel in Pokhara. He jumped on the back of a motorcycle that would take him to a bus station. He'd ride the bus all night to get back to Kathmandu. It was only noon in Pokhara, so we couldn't even check in yet. So I went for a walk to the lake. I saw another swing that was left over from the Shane Festival. I got a Gurkha strong and something called sausage chili at the little cafe that had a view of the lake. Pokhara, and especially its lake, is quite the tourist destination. A laundry was next door to the hotel, so I got my clothes cleaned professionally. I wanted to be ready for the Everest Basecamp Trek as soon as I returned to Kathmandu. My big Pokhara dinner was at a Kentucky Fried Chicken. The chicken was great, but the restaurant didn't have any of the standard KFC sides. No biscuits, mashed potatoes, gravy, coleslaw, or corn. So the meal didn't really scratch the homesickness itch that I was hoping it would. Next time, back to Kathmandu and the start of my Everest Basecamp adventure.